In this video, we're going to talk about how to create a form with Gravity Forms, talk a little bit about the form fields, and how to set up things like notifications and confirmations. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click on the Forms menu item on the left-hand side that Gravity Forms adds. And then we're going to click on Add New to create a new form, and we'll give our form a title. And you can optionally give your form a description. And then click on Create Form, and that's going to open up the Gravity Forms Builder area. So as we talked about before, on the left-hand side is our work area, and on the right-hand side are all the fields that are available. So I'll just go through these really quickly because I want to show you where some of the options are for these fields. So first I'm going to go to Advanced Fields and click the Name field because this is a good example. So all of these general form fields follow the same kind of pattern. Under this General tab is our field label, and that determines the labels above the form field. And then under Description, we can type in an optional description to explain to people what the field is. And then under the name field, so this would be the field specific options. They're always found here, and it gives you a couple options about how that field should work and what it should display. And then under rules, there's going to be required. And if we check that box, that means that that field has to be filled out in order for the form to be completed. Under the Appearance tab, we have a couple other items such as placeholder. And what a placeholder is it's going to put in an example of what the person would be entering into that field. So if I just typed in John Smith here for the placeholder, you can see that in my form example, it's showing John Smith. But as soon as the user clicks on that field, that will disappear and they can enter in their own name. So it's a temporary placeholder to show them an example of what would go in that field. And then we can change around where the inputs up here are displayed. So we can put them above, and you can see this has changed. So this is the description. When we can put it below, this is a name field. And we can do the same thing for the sublabels, which in this case would be first and last. We can put those above or below. We can also put in a custom validation message, and we can put in a custom CSS class, which I will talk about in a later video. And then under Advanced, we have default values. So default values is similar to a placeholder in the sense that it will put something in these input boxes. The difference is with a placeholder, it disappears as soon as the user clicks. But with a default value, it doesn't, it stays. So this would be the value that is submitted essentially if that form field is left blank. And that won't disappear when they click, they'll actually have to delete the text. So normally people use placeholders, but if you wanted a value to be there, which is going to be a default that you would actually want submitted with the form, we would use default values. And there's some visibility tabs and conditional logic, but we're going to cover that in separate videos. So that's basically it for our name field, and we can open and close these fields and their options by hitting this toggle here. We can duplicate a field, so if you have several, say, single line text fields, and a single line text is basically an open-ended single line text field where they would enter in a short answer. And so you may have several of those, and if you wanted to set them all up and then duplicate them and just change the field label or what the field is asking for, that can be a quick way to do that. And then we can delete a field by clicking on the X. It will ask to confirm it, and you click OK. So that's our name field, and then we can do something like email address, and we can, under our options, we can say email confirmation, so they'll have to enter in their email address twice, and it will confirm that they're the same, and we can put in required. And then no duplicates means that everybody that fills out this form, this field has to be unique. So in the case of an email address, nobody can use the same email address. It has to be unique to the form. So that's a good way to prevent duplications or people using the same information. And then I'll just cover the rest of the fields quickly. So a single line text, as I said, is for just short answers that you may want. So it could be pretty much anything. You can even use it for a name field or a phone number field if you didn't want to use the specific fields for that. But it's generally just for a couple words or a one-line answer. A paragraph text is similar to a single line text, except it expects several rows. So this is normally used for the message part of a contact form. Drop-down, multi-select, checkboxes, and radio buttons are for multiple choice options. So you would give the user a certain amount of options and they can click one or more of those. Now, the difference is the select and the radio buttons only allow the user to select one of the options. Or sorry, the drop-down and the radio buttons only allow users to select one of the available options. The checkboxes and the multi-select allow them to choose one or more options, and the only other difference is how they look. After that, we have some other kind of structural fields. We have an HTML field, and this is generally meant for HTML text. So really you would use this if you wanted a paragraph of text in between form fields, whether that be describing a section or anything else like that. You would create an HTML field and you can pretty much put whatever content you want into this box. And then we have sections and pages. So if your form is one page with several sections, you can use this section header to create kind of a break, and you can name the section whatever you would like. So we could say something like personal information. If this is an application form, right, we can use these sections to break up our field. And with our page, this is how we create multiple page forms. So you can see when I click that button, it says begin from this. This is the first page, and then wherever this is, the end of page, that's where my second page is going to start. And then this is saying this is the end of the last page. So I can put as many pages as I want and put the form fields that I want on each page in between these paging areas. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And then under advanced fields, we have just some standard contact information fields. So we have name, we have date, which allows them to enter in a date, and there's a couple different formats for that. Time, a phone number, a email address we already covered. We can put in a website, and basically those just format the answers or mandate that the answers are in a certain format. So with website, it makes sure that it's in the proper, www.whatever.com format. Phone number based on international or the US phone number format. With file upload, we can add a form field to our form which allows them to upload one or more files. So if we click on the options here, the first thing you can do is type in your allowed file extensions, because we don't want them to upload any kind of file. We want specific files. So whether it be, .doc for Word documents or PDF or whatever it is, we can put those in there. We can decide whether or not we want them to be able to upload multiple files or just one. We can put a maximum file size, that kind of stuff. So that can be everything from, say, a scanned photo ID to a resume or anything else that you wanted to put in there. CAPTCHA is a spam prevention functionality, and I'm going to put documentation below this video because that actually requires you to sign up for a reCAPTCHA key. It is free, but it's a little bit of a process, so I will put that documentation below the video. And once that's integrated, and I'll tell you how to do that, you can add a CAPTCHA field, which will put that spam prevention box with where you have to put in the numbers and letters in order to submit. It'll put that below your field. Post fields and pricing fields we're going to talk about in separate videos, so we can skip over those for now. So I'll just put in a paragraph field so we can have our basically our contact form here. So I'll just put in message. And so you can use these different fields to create your form, and once you're done, just click on update. And then before we put this into a page, we want to determine what happens after they fill out this field. So we're going to go, you can go through form settings, which just gives you some basic information about the field itself. But then we can go into confirmations. And confirmations are what happens from the user's perspective. So if we edit this default confirmation, we can see that we can show them text, which is like this, thanks for contacting us, etc. And that's shown in place of the form after they submit it. Or we can send them to a specific page. So we can create a page in our system. It'll show up in this drop down and we can select it. And the last thing is redirect. So if we wanted to redirect them to a specific URL, we could do that. All right. And then for notifications, this is about when emails should go out, right? So if we have an admin notification, if I edit this, so if this is enabled, we can put in what email address it should go through, and then we can put in, the name and the email address where it should come from. We can put in the subject line, and then we can put in the message. So for this message, we can either have a tag here that says all fields, and it's just going to send everything that was set up or that was entered into the form. Or we can do something like we can format this email. So we can put name, and then we go to this little merge tag icon here, and we can do first name space last name. And what that's going to do is it's going to show the name as I've typed it, and then show the first and last name. So we can kind of format these email addresses to make sense. Or we can just have that, if you look here, there's a merge tag for here for all submitted fields, and that'll just show everything. We can also put in some other information here, such as the user IP address or the URL that they filled it out, and that'll just send that along with the email. So I'll just update that, and then I will go back to our form. So we have our form created, we have a confirmation text for the user to see, and we've set up a notification. So now we just need to go to our page that we want our form inserted on, and we'll put that on our contact page. We'll just delete this old tag, and you can hover over this button, and if you do, it says add gravity form. We can click on that, select the form that we would like to insert, choose whether or not we want to show the form title and the form description, but let's deselect those for now. I do recommend you enable Ajax, because it's just kind of a smoother transition when people are filling out their form, and click on insert, and then update our page. And now if we look at our page, you can see that we now have our gravity form. You can see that I have my placeholders here, but as soon as I type, it disappears. And we have our email address field and our message field, and when they click submit, it's going to store that in the back end of the website, and it's going to do that here under forms. If I go to entries, this is where all of the entries would be submitted, and you can see my form fields that I've put, and it would show that kind of in a list so I can check those out. So that's really the basics of creating a form with Gravity Forms. It's actually quite easy. You can look through those form fields to see what different things you have available. If I can, I'll link documentation that describes in detail the different form fields. So we need to build our form, and then we need to go into our confirmations and decide what is going to happen from our user's perspective, and then we set up our notifications. And I just want to point out quickly for notifications, if I go in here, you can create multiple notifications. So for example, if I wanted the user to get a copy of the email address, I could say user confirmation, and then click on select a field. Because I added an email field to my form where they're going to enter in their email address, I can click select a field, select that email field, and then again, I can do the same thing, customize the message for them. So we can get notified ourselves, we can also send a copy to our users, and we can show them some text or whatever you'd like to do. Then we insert the form into our page using either that easy button on the WordPress editor. I'll also show you how to insert forms using our page builders when we get to that point. So that's basically everything we need to know about the basics of creating forms. The next videos in this series are going to talk about more of the complicated fields, such as hidden forms, doing calculations with our fields, and using conditional logic.